Hey everybody, Rosematter here, and welcome to part 16 of my Steins Gate Zero Let's Play. The last episode, we finished off the second route, which was the Twin Automata route. This one is the RMG route. I don't know what that stands for. I'm just going based on my spoiler-free guide that I'm following. So we are doing a new route, and we have to leave off from January 2nd, so that was the day after the attack at the lab. And that was when Amadeus was, I assume, hacked. And Kirisu was trying to call me, and I didn't answer the phone. This time we're going to answer the phone and see where that leads. I really liked the ending of Twin Automata. Definitely more hopeful than the first ending we got, which was like the bad ending. The big shocker, of course, being that Amadeus Kurisu has memories of Okabe that she shouldn't have, because this Kirisu in this timeline died before she met Okabe. So the first time this one should have met him was like when she was Amadeus, but she called him Hoyen Kyoma. So that's a pretty big revelation, is that even the Amadeus versions of characters can get memories from different timelines. That's pretty crazy. That changes a whole heck of a lot. Yeah, so let's go ahead. Let's start this new route and see what happens. Oh, all right. Here we go. We want to answer. Just as I was about to put my phone back in my pocket, it rang again. First, I thought Maho might have forgotten to tell me something, but when I saw the screen, I gasped.
これは
Kagari? 電話誰から?
Stared at the screen, unable to answer. Well, we are going to answer, though. We have to.
もしもし
Oh, she's crying. Help me.
クリス
In that instant, I suddenly felt incredibly dizzy, and everything went black. Here we go. New timeline. Or it shifted slightly. Slightly, and yet everything's going to change here. I felt like I was floating up from the bottom of a black pit. My mind slowly began to clear.
ここは
I slowly looked around the room. There was no way I could mistake it. This was the Future Gadget Lab. The place I'd been just a moment ago. There was nothing unusual about it, except for the fact everyone was missing. They'd been there just a moment ago, but now they were all gone. I looked at the clock. It had been just about 3 p.m. when I finished my call with Maho. Only a few minutes had passed. Even if I'd passed out, it was impossible to imagine all of them leaving me here. Which meant...
まさか
I took a slow walk around the room. There were other strange things. Daro's PC, for example. There was a thin layer of dust on the keyboard. Oh, boy. As if no one had used it for a while. And then the corner of the room. Normally, that was where Mayuri put her bags. The paper bags where she always put the cosplay outfits she was working on. I'd seen them there just a moment ago, but now they were gone. Have they been, like, kidnapped or something? Could this be...
また世界線が変わった
But why?
そういえば
Kirisu's words from before. Why would Kirisu say something like that? Did it have something to do with the worldline shift? I took the phone. Oh, Amadeus isn't there. I took the phone out of my pocket and went to start the Amadeus app, and then stopped.
消えてる
The Amadeus icon was gone from my phone.
どういうことだこれは
My mind raced to try and come up with an explanation. So in this timeline, did we just not meet Maho at all? But of course I came up with nothing.
落ち着けとにかく状況を確認するんだ
I needed to calmly find out what this world was like. I was about to walk towards the door to find out when... the back of the room. I heard a sound from the back of the development room, which no one ever used anymore. Someone was there. Who? Daru? Mairi? I slowly approached. What? I almost couldn't breathe. I never forgot. I'd never forgotten her. The girl standing there was Kirisu Makise. Whoa! Didn't see that coming. What? And I was like, that's definitely not Kagari. Definitely a different body. Kurisu Makise was looking down at something. Kurisu couldn't be here because she was dead. Was I seeing things? Was my desire to see her making me hallucinate? But it seemed far too realistic to be a hallucination. Still, it felt if I spoke a word, she'd disappear. I couldn't say a thing. What was she staring at, without even moving a muscle? She was so still I thought she must be a hallucination after all, but then... She finally exhaled a little, and slowly turned around. Oh my gosh, it's Kurisu! I missed her so much! Like, there was Amadeus Kurisu, but to see her in the flesh...
Okabe!
My throat was dry and I couldn't speak. You probably desire to just give her a big hug right now. Oh, I thought we'd have to work at least a couple more routes for this, and yet this feels so wrong. Like, this doesn't feel like we've earned it yet. Something's off, obviously.
Okabe?
Kurisu. Kurisu. なんだな。
新年早々何言ってるのよ。大丈夫？何か悪いものでも食べた？
Even her slightly peeved expression.
何？
And the gentle flash you sometimes saw in her eyes. And this.
どうしたのよ。本当に大丈夫な。
I knew it! I knew he was gonna hug her. Even her warmth.
あんた、急に何を。
It wasn't a hallucination, or an artificial intelligence on a screen. It was the real Kirisu Makise.
Okabe?
But if she's here, does that mean she's going to die? Is this going to be like a Mairi situation where she's not supposed to be here, and she's just going to keep meeting her end? The real live Kirisu Makise.
ねえ、岡部、お願い話して。
すまない。でも、もう少しだけ、このまま。
あんたもしかして泣いてるの？
I realized for the first time that my cheeks were wet. Aww. I felt her soft hands on my back. Are they together in this?
もう平気だから。
In this timeline?
Kurisu.
I mean, the fact she said she hasn't seen him in a while, and it seems like Daru hasn't been in a while, and Mairi? Does that mean, like, Kirisu's here, but Daru and Mairi don't come by anymore? Are they, like, not in my life anymore?
大丈夫よ。大丈夫だから。
She whispered to me in a soft voice and patted me on the back, and wrapped her arms around me, like a kind mother holding a child.
すまなかった。
I finally calmed myself down. She was still there. She still existed. Now that I'd calmed down, I realized what that meant.
気にしないで。無理もないわよ。私だって時々あるもの。そういうこと。
そういうこと？
思い出したんでしょ？マユリのこと。
So Mairi's... Is she dead in this timeline? That's the whole thing, right? It's gotta be Kurisu or Mairi. It can't be both in the same timeline. That's right. Kurisu was here. which meant this was the Alpha world line. Ah, we went back to the Alpha world line. The world line without Mayuri. The world where Mayuri died. I knew it. I knew, like, Kirisu's here, something's off, right? Some small part of me had wished this was the world beyond Steins Gate. Sorry, dude, we're gonna have to do at least a couple more routes before we can possibly get there. That it was a new future which someone else had opened for me. But of course that was too good to be true. There was no way for me to know what had happened. But I must have made my choice. To give up on Mayuri. There was the future where she was gone. Confronted once more with the reality of Mayuri's death, my heart felt like it was about to burst. How had she died?
Okabe?
Ugh, going through all of the potential ones. Did they push her in front of the train? Trying to think of all the ones. She got hit by a car, pushed in front of a train. She got shot. Gosh, what are all the other ones? Here, this is why he needs therapy. Hardcore. Very much so. This is some PTSD, right? Did they shoot her? Or... Kirisu's tiny hand wrapped around mine. Little by little, my racing heart began to calm down.
ごめん、私が余計なこと言っちゃったから。
いや、そうじゃないんだ。そうじゃ。
薬飲む？水持ってくる。
I rummaged through my pocket and found a small box of pills. It was the same anxiety medication that I'd already been taking. Even in this world, I was still on the same drugs. I looked around the room while Kurisu got me some water from the tap.
ねえ、岡部。どうしてここに来たの？ここにはずっと寄りつかなかったでしょ？橋田も来なくなったし。
誰も。
ええ。
The room was awfully clean then. I took a closer look and saw that there were a few places like Dara's PC that were covered in dust, but the rest seemed to have been regularly cleaned.
お前はクリスは来ていたのか。
時々ね。じゃないと寂しいだろうと思って。
Someone's still paying rent in this place. Maybe because Tanuji seems to, well, if he doesn't have a soft spot for Mayuri, then Nai definitely does. Maybe he cuts them a deal or something in honor of Mayuri. I didn't have to ask who they were. Mayuri loved this place. She loved the Future Gadget Lab. She loved the time she spent with all the lab members here.
ごめんね。
どうして謝る？
だって。
I waited, but no answer ever came. I can't remember in the Alpha World line if Kurisu knows that, you know, because she's here, that means Mayuri had to die. Like, she knows that Okabe made that choice to save her over Mayuri, and she feels that guilt. What was she apologizing for? For talking about Mayuri? For making me remember? Or for making me choose?
クリス。
何？
And I remember, like, Kirisu specifically said to save Mayuri. Like, when there was that choice, she said to save her. So she probably is dealing with some pretty bad survivor's guilt.
あ、いや。
If I said something, she'd answer me right away. I could reach out and touch her. That alone brought me to the verge of tears. If I just stayed here like this. What was I thinking? I'd given up on everything and left her to die. And still I was happy to be back here in this world line with Kirisu. As I was sad over losing Mayuri, part of me was thinking I wanted to stay here, even though I didn't have the right. If there was a god in this world, he must be a cruel, twisted being. Why was he doing this to me again? So, in this world line, we'll never meet Maho or Dr. Leskinen or any of those people. So we're gonna have to get out of this world line if we want to, you know, get Myri back. But is that it? Is like the choice to be like, am I going to stay in the Alpha world line or am I going to choose to leave it? Was what I done that wrong? I'd already made my choice once. There was no way to save the world. There was no way to save Kurisu. But we need Maho, right? Like Maho is going to try and continue on with the time machine to save Kirisu, so we need to get back to the world line where we like meet up with Maho. With Kirisu in front of me, I was already starting to waver. Should I go back to the beta world line? Should I send the D-mail? The D-mail.
そういえば、電話レンジカッコ仮はどうした？
どうって、あんたが破棄させたんでしょ？忘れたの？
And we would never have met Kagari either, right? Yeah, Suzuha's not here. Oh man, oh man. I thought this was going to be the Kagari route for some reason. Maybe I was mistaken on that. The phone wave no longer existed, it seemed. Of course it didn't. Its mere existence had made us a target of CERN. But without it, I couldn't leave this world line on my own. So even if I did stay here in this world line, it wouldn't be my responsibility. It wasn't my fault, and it wasn't something I'd wanted. Which meant...
ねえ、Okabe。
So are we gonna have to rely on someone else to get us out of here?
悪いんだけど、何か飲むもの買ってきてくれない？
飲むもの？
ちょっと喉乾いちゃったのよね。できれば温かいものがいいわ。
インスタントのコーヒーぐらいなら作るぞ。
Wasn't that what Kirisu had always made me do? 2 cubes of sugar, no milk.
コーヒー切らしちゃってるのよ。
She wants me to leave, I think, for some reason.
わかった。
Yeah, I should go. Yeah, she just wants me to get out of here. I want to get outside and think things through.
ミルクと砂糖の入った甘いやつね。
ミルクは入れないんじゃなかったのか。
寒い日には思いっきり甘ったるいものが飲みたくなる。
了解だ。
I stood up and headed for the door, but turned around halfway.
何？
いや。
It felt like if I took my eyes off her, she'd disappear, but that was far too embarrassing to say.
Okabe。しっかりね。
子供じゃないんだ。お使いぐらいできる。
そうね。いってらっしゃい。
Oh, and it looks like the Brontu workshop is locked up, or like it's not there? My whole body relaxed the second I stepped outside of the lab. Evidently, meeting the living Kirisu had made me really tense. I didn't know how to talk to her or what to say anymore. It could just be closed, but even though I'd spoken to Kirisu like it was the most normal thing in the world. I'm just trying to see if I can spot any like little differences in this world line. I still couldn't believe it though. Was this really the Alpha world line? No, if Kirisu was here, it had to be. But then why? Who had caused the world line change, and how? It was almost like if she got hacked, maybe somehow someone is making Kirisu reach out to me in order to change the world line on purpose? Question mark? I have no idea. All I know is by answering that call, they correlated with the world line change. That call from Kirisu, was that what triggered it somehow? No, I should stop thinking about it. Someone else had caused it somehow. I shouldn't get involved anymore. I didn't want to. I didn't want to overthrow the structure of the world anymore. I just wanted to live in peace. In a universe with no world lines or attractor fields. Attractor fields. Oh man, these old definitions. A world line convergence zone. This is the standard accepted model for quantum physics in 2036. After the many worlds interpretation and the Copenhagen interpretation, it's a deterministic interpretation where many world lines gather into a world branch called an attractor field. This attractor field is simply a zone in which all world lines will eventually reach the same end result. Major splits in the world line at the attractor field's level are called world line trunks. One pre-10 example of a world line trunk is the year 2000. It's pretty crazy to think that we are closer to 2036 than we are, you know, when this game took place. Is that true? Actually, I would think about that. When does this game take place again? Is it 2011? Either way, like, it's pretty crazy to think that that fictional time, the 2036, that's not far off, actually. It stopped letting the whims of fate rule my life. It's pretty crazy when you play these older games and then they talk about like a time in this time, like a pretty far future, and then when you play it, you're like, that's not as far away as you think it is. Like 2036 almost sounds like some crazy futuristic time, but it's just over 10 years away. There's nothing left I could do. Suddenly, something seemed very wrong. Kirisu's words a moment ago, what had they meant?
Okabe, しっかりね。
She couldn't mean to. I turned around and rushed back into the lab. What?
Kurisu!
What does that mean?
Kurisu! お前、それ。
参ったわね。見つかっちゃったか。
Oh, she was just where I'd seen her the first time, standing and looking toward the back of the development room. In the depths of the darkness, in a spot that just a moment ago had been covered by a cloth, I saw an old microwave with its door taken off. Oh shit, okay. Microwave oven, a cooking appliance that heats the moisture in food using microwaves. They were originally called radar ranges. Radar in this case referring to electromagnetic waves. Microwave ovens were invented when a communications radar technician realized EM waves could warm food. Research was done on the process after that, and in 1947 they were sold to the public in America. Microwave ovens use waves in the 2.45 gigahertz frequency range, with home units having an output between 500 to 1,000 watts, and commercial ovens between 1,500 and 2,000 watts. This frequency range is called the ISM band and is the same one used by wireless internet. The phone wave, name subject to change. Future gadget number 8. So she lied when she said that I destroyed it. It was the gadget that had changed my fate. No, the fate of the world.
どうして？それは破棄したんじゃなかったのか？
ええ、破棄したわ。
Oh, okay.
これは
She's making
私が
another
新
one?
しく作り直したの。
Oh shit, is she
言って
trying
みれ
to...
ば電話レンジ買いね。
She's trying to get to a world line where Myri can live as well.
正しくはカッコ仮がつくんだった。それなら電話レンジカッコ仮会員になる。
名前なんてどうだっていい。作り直したって。どうしてそんなことを？
過去にメールを送るためよ。メールを送って世界線を変えるの。うん。あんたにとっては戻すって言った方がいいのかもね。世界線を。これ完成したのはね、実は1ヶ月以上前なの。それからはひたすらここに立って送るべきか送らないでおくべきか悩み続けてた。それがまさかあんたの方から来るなんてね。
お前、何を？
ねえ岡部、あんたついさっき別の世界線から来たでしょ。
Wait, hold on. Okay, she didn't end up using this. So it wasn't because of her that I ended up coming here, right?
それもベータ世界線から。違う？
気づいてたのか？
そうでなきゃあんたがあんなことするはずないもの。
あんなこと？
だから
Hug her.
あんな風に私を抱きしめたりとか、そういうことよ。
It was all so wonderful. The way her cheeks reddened in embarrassment as she looked away. The way she pursed her lips. The way she fiddled with the ends of her hair. Everything was just... was just so wonderful. I realized it again. I was in love with her.
さらに言えば、その世界線の変動は誰か別の人の手によるもので、あんたが好き好んで変動させたわけじゃない。
And it wasn't her because she said that she was debating whether to send the message.
当たってる？
Maybe Maho somehow figured out Kurisu's, the notes that she had in the time machine, made one, and somehow sent me here where she's alive.
すべてを見通しというわけか。
I wonder if Okabe's gonna mention Maho.
どれだけあんたのこと見てきたと思ってるのよ。あ、いや、違うからな。見てきたって別にそういう意味じゃなくて、いや、違わなくもないけど。とにかく
She took a deep breath and looked up at me
あ
again.
んたがベータ世界線から来たってことは、あんたは過去に一度その世界を選択したってことでしょ。
She was so far beyond what I could hope to be. In those brief moments she discovered all that. She was right about everything. But even so, I couldn't let her know. Admitting that would mean admitting that I left her to die. There was no way I could do that.
すまない。
In the end, that was all I said. But that was an admission all the same. But instead of looking sad, she...
謝るなバカ。あんたが自分で決めたことでしょうが。だったら自分の選択に自信を持ちなさい。
She tried to cheer me up. That's right. Kirisu was right. I was the one who'd chosen the beta worldline. But...
それにね、あんたは多分間違ってなかった。さっき来たばっかりのあんたは知らないだろうけど、この半年間、あんたはずっと自分を責めてた。そんな素振り、私には決して見せようとしなかったけど。
It was the same. It was the same as what I'd gone through. It was the same as the beta worldline. He's just destined to be
どう
miserable
してあげ
in
ること
every
もできなかっ
worldline,
た。
except Steins Gate.
だって、あんたの苦しみは私のせいだから。私を生かすために、あんたは苦しんでたんだから。でもね、それも今日で終わり。終わりにしなきゃいけないのよ。だって、このままじゃ、あんたはずっと罪の意識に苛まれて、最後には押しつぶされちゃう。
So this will be interesting. I just got to the Alpha world line and she's about to send a D-mail and then we're going to be probably thrust into another world line.
同じだ。
どういうこと？
どっちにしても結局俺はずっと後悔するんだ。マイリを救えなかったこと、お前を救えなかったこと、アルファ世界線にいてもベータ世界線にいてもそれは変わらない。
So maybe I should just stay here.
しっかりしなさい、岡部倫太郎。
クリス、
なんて顔してるのよ。あんたらしくない。私の好きな法王院京馬さんはもっと自信に満ちた顔してなきゃ。
Kioma Hyoin. It's weird when I can say Hoyin Kioma okay, but when it's flipped I have a hard time with it. There was a name I hadn't heard in a long time.
あんたは正しい道を選択したの。マユリを助けるっていう選択を。それは決して間違ってない。
でも俺はお前を。
いい？今あんたがここにいるのは、そうね、夢を見ているだけよ。
夢？
そう、夢の中であんたは私に会った。ただそれだけのこと。と？そう思えば少しは気も楽でしょ。
Kurisu sighed a little and laughed.
これだけ脳の研究が進んでいるのに、夢を見るメカニズムって実はまだ明確にはなっていないのよね。眠っている間に脳内では記憶の整理が行われている。その過程で発生するのが夢だっていう説もあるけど、要するに ここはベータ世界線のあんたが迷い込んだ夢の中の世界。あんたの頭の中を整理するためにね。そしてこれが夢ならいつかは目を覚まさなきゃならない。そうでしょ。
でもこれは夢なんかじゃない。現にこうして。
I reached out and touched her cheek.
現にこうしてお前はここにいるじゃないか。
感触だって脳が感じさせている機能の一つよ。
She took a quick step back. The sensation of her cheek disappeared from my fingers.
だいたいここにいてもあんたは幸せにはなれない。ずっと後悔の念を拭うことはできないの。そしてそれは私も同じ。
ベータ世界線でも変わらない。俺はずっとお前を助けられなかったことを悔やみながら生きてきた。
だけど少なくともまゆりは幸せでいられるでしょ。
まゆりは
She doesn't know anything, because that's what I wanted. I wanted her to know nothing and be happy. For now, that wish was still coming true, but...
あんたはまゆりに笑っててほしい。そう願ってる。私も同じなの。ということはやっぱりあんたの選択は間違ってはなかったってことよ。
I'd finally met her again, but... She was here, alive, right in front of me, but...
もう
She walked up to me without trying to hide her frustration.
いい加減にしなさい、岡部倫太郎。一度出した結論でしょうが、あんたはここにいちゃいけないの。帰らなきゃいけない。夢から覚めなきゃいけないのよ。だってもうそうやって苦しむあんたを見ていたくないから。
クリス。
さあ、これ以上は時間の無駄よ。私はやるから。
She probably sees me coming here as like, that's a sign that she's got to do it. She turned away from me. I could feel the strength of her will, her resolve. I remembered what I'd seen just after I'd come to this world line. Kirisu had been just standing there in front of the phone wave. Thinking back, she'd probably already made her decision, without anyone knowing, without anyone to say goodbye to. She'd chosen to go to a world where she would no longer exist. It had probably taken her a long time and a lot of struggle to come to that decision. She'd probably asked herself 1,000 times if it was really the right answer. If this was what she'd chosen after all that, I didn't have the right to stop her. It'd be wrong.
ねえ岡部、夢から覚める前に一つ約束して。
So such a tease. Hopefully this is like a preview of things to come once I get the true end. So sad that I have to play through these games twice to hopefully give him a happy ending and give Kurisu a happy ending. It's like they'd had it at one point and then it got taken away.
約束。
ベータ世界線に行ったら私のことは忘れなさい。
That was just the opposite of what she'd said that day. That day, the day when I'd chosen the Beta World line, she'd said to me, "Don't forget me." But now she was asking for the opposite.
忘れるなんてそんなことできるわけないだろう。
She was always like that. She always cared more about others than herself. She always sacrificed herself. She was asking me this for my sake only. She didn't want to be forgotten. She hated being forgotten more than anyone else could.
言ったでしょ。これは夢よ。夢は普通起きたら忘れるもんでしょ。
She was stubborn and bullheaded. I'd never be able to forget her. But
子供の頃に見た悪夢は今でも覚えてるぞ。
誰が悪夢な。誰が。
it was all I could do to keep from breaking down. But that was probably the same for her.
とにかく私のことは忘れること。今日あったこともこれまであったこともそれが私の望みだから。
She turned around and stuck out her pinky finger. She forced it around mine.
指切り玄満。嘘ついたら海馬に電極ぶっ刺す。指切った。
随分と語呂が悪いな。
ほっとけ。
Her hand moved away from mine. Her gaze looked away from me. It was almost time to say goodbye. She was sending a message to the past. I knew it was the right thing to do. I knew this was what she'd wanted. But still,
クリス、
our voices overlapped.
どうした？
あんたこそ何？
なんでもない。ただ呼んでみただけだ。
The name of the person I cared for.
偶然ね。私も同じ。
The name of the person I loved.
ねえ、あんたは覚えてる？私と初めて会った時のこと。
忘れられるわけがない。何しろ強烈だったからな。
それを言うならあんたの方こそ。ほんと、あの時はまさかこんな風になるなんて思ってもみなかったわ。まさかあんな出会いでこんなにも。
Would lead to meeting someone so important to me. Not that I'd say it now.
まったくだな。
I couldn't say it, but
でも言っとくけど、私たちの出会いも覚えてていいのは今のうちだからな。
I was thinking that. I was like, she's saying to not remember anything about her, but now she's reminiscing right before we're supposed to leave. Even for a little.
世界線が戻ったら忘れなきゃいけないんだからな。
Even just for a second.
わかってるよ。
Just for an instant.
そんなに簡単に忘れられるんだ。
If it would just last a little longer.
お前が言い出したことだろ。
Her voice.
そうだけど、そんな風にあっさり言われちゃうと、それはそれでムカつく。
The way she moved.
忘れろと言ったり、忘れるなと言ったり。
And of course, I gotta get one last
一
argument
体どっ
in.
ちなんだ？
Like an old married couple. Her smile.
冗談。嘘よ。嘘。
なんだ？嘘なのか？
そう。嘘。
Just a little longer so I could remember it all. But I was out of time.
岡部。それじゃあ。ね。
Those words were the sign the magic was over.
あ、
There was a million things I wanted to say, but I stopped myself. Kirisu smiled satisfied and turned back toward the phone wave. She probably already had the message ready. The phone wave started to boom and crackle like thunder. There was a long, long countdown. The whole time, Kurisu faced away from me, and I just watched. The noise got louder. The countdown continued. And then it was time.
岡部。いい目覚めよ。
Kurisu turned around with a big smile on her face. Her voice was cut off by the roar. All right. Well, I was wondering how we were going to deal with all that, but there we go. Problem solved. But yeah, what a tease. And then I woke up from my short dream. Color gradually returned to my blacked out vision. The lab started to come back into focus. I could tell immediately that the world line had changed. I could still see Kurisu when I closed my eyes, but she wasn't in the development room anymore. It's like the whole thing had just been a daydream. It felt like I'd been caught in the boundary between dreaming and wakefulness. I was back to a world without Kurisu. This wasn't the Alpha world line. There was no point in even bothering to check. A moment ago, only Kirisu and I had been in this room. Now everyone was here.
おかり、どうしたの？具合悪い？
いや、大丈夫だ。
Mayuri.
お薬飲みますか？
平気だよ。心配ない。
Lukako. And... Oh,
本当に？無理
Kagari.
しちゃダメだよ。
Alright, so maybe this will be the Kagari route after all. I was very confused. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm doing the Kagari route next. And then all of a sudden it was Kurisu. Kagari, Sheena. If Mayuri and Kagari were here, that meant I was back to the beta world line.
ちょっと腹が減っただけだ。朝から何も食べてなくてな。
もうオカリンさんたらダメだよ。ちゃんとご飯は食べなきゃ。ダルおじさんみたいに大きくなれないよ。
ああ、なるくらいなら一食抜いた方がマシだよ。
Huh?
だったらマユシーが何か作ってあげ
Yeah,
るよ。
Kagari wasn't with us right before the timeline changed, right?
ママが
Oh,
作れるの？
mommy.
もうかがりちゃんまでそういうこと言うんだから。
Now she's just saying it straight out loud. I don't even know if she noticed that she'd said it.
これでもね、最近はユキさんにお料理教えてもらってるんだよ。
じゃあ僕が手伝うから。
待ってくれ。
すみません。僕手伝わない方がいいですか？
いや、そうじゃない。そうじゃないんだ。
I looked around at everyone and then back at Kagari.
かがりさん。
やだなオカリンさん。私のことはかがりでいいって言ってるのに。
Something was different.
じゃあ、かがり。
Yeah, right?
さっき、まゆりのことをなんて呼んでたか聞いてもいいか。
なんて
Okay, so she straight up is just saying
マ
that.
マだよ。
And everyone's just cool with that?
どうして。
どうしても何もママはママだもん。ね、ママ。
This is, okay, what the heck? What? Okay.
えへへ。やっぱりそう呼ばれるの、ちょっと照れちゃうな。
Especially because, like, in, to people who are just seeing this, in this world line right now, like, they're both about the same age. I felt vaguely dizzy watching Mayuri fidget in
知っ
embarrassment.
てるのか二人とも。未来の世界で親子だってことを。
かがりちゃんのことはオカリンが教え
Okay,
て
so
く
in
れ
this
たん
world
だ
line,
よ。
we told her about it.
俺が。
本当のことを知っておいた方がいいって。
ね
Did I really tell them? That must have meant that Luca was told everything too, because he's right there. Did I tell them something so important?
じゃあ、もしかしてルカ子も。
ごめんなさい。僕聞くつもりはなかったんですけど、耳に入ってしまって。
Lukako lowered his head in apology.
でも大丈夫です。他の人には言ってませんし。それに僕ちょっとだけ嬉しかったんです。
Aw, Luca finally got what he wanted.
皆さんと秘密を共有できて。
But I feel like that's gonna potentially put them in danger, though. That was the whole reason that we didn't want to tell Luca and everybody the truth, was because it could potentially put them in danger.
本当は直接教えてもらえればよかったんですけど。
Even Lukako knew about Mayuri and Kagari, which meant that, of course.
でも驚きました。タイムマシンとか
Also, where's
未来と
Suzuha
か
in all this? We haven't seen Suzuha in a
お
long
話
time.
の世界のものだって思ってたんですけど、実現できるなんて。
Yeah, this is not good that a lot more people know about the time machine. Well, even if it's just Luca. He knew about the time machine. Evidently, I hadn't simply come straight back from the Alpha world line. I was in a world line slightly different from the one I'd been in before. The divergence meter I'd used before was gone now. That meant I didn't have a precise number, but this all felt very different. The problem was finding out what was the same as the old world line and what was different.
かがり、もう少し質問させてほしい。
何？
I showered Kagari with questions in an effort to find out what was going on. Here's what I learned. First, Kagari retained her memories of her childhood, in other words, of the year 2036. She knew Mairi, Daru, Suzuha, and also Ferris and Lukako. But as for what the world of 2036 was like, and how she'd become Mairi's daughter, she hadn't told them the details about that. Fortunately, they hadn't seemed interested in knowing about their futures. Everyone always thinks that they'd want to know what their future holds. But when the chance finally comes, fear outweighs your curiosity. Future wasn't always a happy thing. Knowing the future might destroy your dreams. It might be a death sentence like it was for me. Some people would lose all sense of meaning in their lives if they knew that there was inevitably going to be a war in which 5 billion people died.
それじゃあここに来たのはルカ子の家に居候したのがきっかけで間違いないな。
うん。っていうか、オカリンさんがママと引き合わせてくれたんだよ。覚えてないの？
いや、そういうわけじゃないんだが、一応確かめておこうと思ってな。
一応ね。変なオカリンさん。
Kagari going missing had happened almost exactly as I remembered it. The same was true as how she came to us. And
行方不明になっていた間はどこで何をしていたのか全然覚えていないのか。
うん。きれいさっぱり。気づいたらお寺で寝かされてた。
she was still missing some of her memories too. In other words, in this worldline, the only memories she had were of her childhood and of the last few weeks since she'd woken up in the Chiba Mountains. The most important part was still missing. Was there anything else I needed to ask? I was staring at the floor trying to think when I realized that something was missing.
床が綺麗だ。
あ、さっき岡部さんが来る前に掃除しておきました。
Does he mean like clean as like there's no gunshot or there's no like bullet hole? So maybe that didn't happen in
い
this
や、
worldline?
そうじゃなくて
Yeah.
床に小さな穴が開いてたはずなんだが。
床に穴ですか？
A lab had been attacked just last night. During the attack, one of their bullets had left a dark hole in the floor.
穴なんて開いてたかな？なかったと思うけど。
ちなみにお前たち昨日はどうだった？
昨日のパーティーのこと、すっごく楽しかったよ。あんなに楽しかったの、私初めてだった。
They wouldn't say that if there had been an attack, which meant the attack had never taken place. Was no one after Kagari in this world? No, it was too early to assume that. Still didn't know what had happened when she'd gone missing. Until I did, I couldn't say for sure if she was safe. Just like how sometimes Mairi's death would occur on different days in the Alpha World line, the same thing might happen a few days later. In fact, it would be better to be cautious.
またみんなでパーティーしたいね。
その時は僕も何か作るよ。
私も手伝う。
They all started happily talking about last night's party. At first glance, it was a peaceful scene, but something sinister might be happening, and I just didn't know it. Doesn't that just summarize this game perfectly? Even when there's like peaceful things happening, there's always a sinister thought that something bad is going to happen soon. In fact, it feels like the happier the times, the more it's going to be leading up to something tragic. No, I knew something had to be happening. The fact the world line was changing was proof. Why had it changed anyway? I thought back to the events of that night. First, someone had taken over Amadeus. Kurisu had called me and asked for help. The world line had changed right after I'd answered, which meant the key was Amadeus? Did Amadeus have something to do with the world line change? And what about the group who'd attacked Kagari? Was it all connected? Maybe I needed to find out.
ところで、かがりちゃん、時間大丈夫？あ、いっけない。休憩時間終わってた。店長に怒られちゃう。
店長ということはバイトしてるのか？
そうだよ。下のブラウン管工房で。って、この前言ったじゃん。
そうだったか。
In the old world line, Kagari had started working for Tanuji after the attack. That was another difference.
もう、今日のオカリンさんはボケボケだね。しっかりしてよ。
すまない。
Kagari hopped up and skipped out of the room. Her words and mannerisms were much more childish than they'd been in the last world line.
アルバイト、頑張ってね。はーい。それじゃ、行ってきまーす。
かがり、戻る前にもう一つだけ聞かせてくれ。
I asked one final question to Kagari, who was now giving a crisp salute.
アマデウスという言葉を聞いて何か思い当たることはないか。
アマテウス？
Kagari seemed to be thinking for a moment.
ね。ごめん、わかんないや。
そうか。
She didn't look like she was lying or being sarcastic. She must really not have known. I watched her leave the lab, then took out my phone. There was another thing I needed to check. What was happening with Amadeus? I looked for— oh, it's gone! I looked for the icon on my screen. Amadeus, the AI that held Kirisu Makise's personality and memories, and the application which started the program. But the program was gone.
悪かったな。こんなところに呼び出して。
別に構わないわ。ちょうど近くまで来てたから。
After seeing the icon missing on my phone, I'd contacted Maho immediately. My goal, of course, was to see what was going on with Amadeus in this world. I had to find out.
で、話って？
アマデウスのことだ。
Maho's eyes suddenly went wide. Her reaction surprised me as well. I'd simply said the word Amadeus.
あなた、どうして知ってるの？
どうしてって、どういうことだ？
どうしてあなたがアマデウスの
Oh,
ことを知
so
って
she
るのよ？
hadn't. So they know each other, obviously, in this timeline, but she hadn't given him access to Amadeus?
だって、あのプロジェクトは去年の夏、
Shit, okay.
クリスの事件があった。
Well, if
あ
that's
の
the
後に
case,
凍結されたのよ。
how are Maho and I connected then if I didn't agree to, test Amadeus?
凍結された？凍結ってことはつまりプロジェクト自体打ち切られたってことか？
Man, oh man, I love seeing the different changes with each timeline.
はっきり言ってしまえば、そういうことね。
She clenched her fist in anger. It seemed the change in this world line was a big one.
で、さっきの質問。どうしてあなたがアマデウスのことを知ってるの？
You're gonna have to get—
それは
I was gonna say, Maho, you're gonna have to be okay with a lot of stuff right now, like time travel and things, or else she's gonna think I'm crazy. Otherwise, she's gonna think I'm some sort of, spy. Should I tell her about the world lines and attractor field theory?
クリスから聞いたんだよ。大学の先輩がそういう研究を
I
してるって。
guess, alright, that's a good white lie.
クリスが？あの子、あなたにそんな話までしていたのね。
I decided it wasn't the time to tell her. If I tried to explain everything, I'd have to tell her about D-mail and the time machine. Maho didn't seem to know about all that yet. I could imagine what she'd do if she heard the truth. She was yet another of those people who was entranced by the possibilities of science.
なあ、アマデウスが凍結されたっていう話、もう少し詳しく教えてくれないか？理由は何だったんだ？
なんでも、外部団体からクレームが入ったんですって。人の記憶を人工知能に持たせるのは、人間の複製を作り出すのと同じこと。神のみに許される所業だって。欧米って、自分たちの価値観で物を言う人が多いのよね。特に、そういうデリケートな部分は。
理由はそれだけなのか？
ええ。少なくとも、私はそう聞いてるわ。いきなり研究は中止だって言われて、教授たちも随分怒ってた。
Nope. Alright. Lukako Okabe, there's something I want you to tell me. You okay with, I'll say, you okay with asking me? Yes, I think you can give me good advice. I don't want you expecting too much. What kind of gift do you think a father would enjoy? Your father, huh? I think the darkness within him goes very deep. The darkness? Oh, that was his Hoyan Kyoma coming out a bit. Uh, darkness, black? A black handkerchief? Maybe that would be a good idea? Maybe, yeah. A handkerchief. Great, I'll do that. But why black? I think your dad probably likes black. For real. Thank you. Thank you, Okabe. That was cute. Did that have something to do with the worldline change too? Wait. So how did I meet Maho, right? We'd originally met at the Amadeus seminar. That never happened.
どうしたの？
Now he's got to be all weird, be like, okay, this is going to be a strange question, but how did we meet?
いや、その、思い出してたんだ。君と出会った時のことを。
ああ、あの時のこと。ああいう偶然ってあるのね。
It's funny, she just refused to elaborate any further. I asked a few more questions, taking care not to rouse her suspicions, and managed to learn the basic story. Maho had really wanted to see the place where Kurisu had died. When she finally went to the radio building, she'd run into me.
オカルト的な考え方って大っ嫌いだけど。でも、あなたと出会えたのは、クリスが繋いでくれた縁なのかもしれないわね。
Karma, or perhaps another example of attractor field convergence. It had already been decided Maho and I would meet here in Akihabara. But was there some meaning to that?
そうそう。まゆりさんたちによろしく伝えておいてくれるかしら。昨日は楽しかったって。
ああ。
Evidently, she'd gone to last night's party in this worldline too.
おかげで、日本でのいい思い出ができたわ。
思い出って、帰るのか？
すぐにじゃないけどね。言ったでしょ？私今、クリスがやっていた研究を引き継いでるの。
Okay. So the timeline research, so maybe she already knows about it.
いつまでも日本でバカンス気分を堪能してるわけにもいかないのよ。
そうか。
But still, she was only in Japan for another 10 days. I hoped nothing would happen during that time, which means something will definitely happen. Amadeus had been shut down and no longer existed. No longer would I hear Kirisu's voice. After I said goodbye to Maho, what that meant really started to sink in. Man, that just hits harder that we got that little bit of a moment with Kurisu, and then coming back to this world line, you don't even get to talk to the AI version of her, like she's just gone. I could still feel Kurisu's warmth in my chest, her smell. All the feelings I tried to forget were coming back now that I'd seen her. No one will ever be happy in that world line. Everyone will be miserable. That's what she had said. Yeah, but in the Alpha world line, does that also means that the war is not happening, right? So yeah, they're sad, but also 5 billion people don't die in that war. Or does it happen in the Alpha world line anyway? I'm pretty sure that like the whole reason that Suzuha wanted me to change the Beta world line is because it's the Beta world line where the war happens. It's just kind of funny how Okabe's like, 5 people are sad, maybe. There's Daru, Kirisu, me, Luca, Mayuri's parents, other people Mayuri knew. But also the war doesn't happen, so I'm like, if you want to balance it out. That's what she had said. I knew that. That's why I decided to stay here. But that didn't mean I could erase the sense of loss I felt. I went back to the lab to get all this together in my head. The cause of the attack on the last world line was Kagari, and there was a good chance Amadeus was involved in the world line change that took place afterward. But in this world line, the lab had never been attacked, and the Amadeus project had been cancelled while it was still in the research stage. That meant that 2 major factors in the events that had occurred so far no longer existed. If they were gone, maybe there was no need to worry too much. But even so, there was still a tiny alarm going off in the back of my mind. Why had Amadeus been shut down? What happened to Kagari's missing memories? And then there was that whole thing about, like, way back in the first world line, there was that guy who attacked them with the gun who was, like, chanting about something from the Bibles and the whole thing about, and then Kagari, little Kagari, she said the same thing about, like, God. told her that this shouldn't happen. So maybe whatever's going on with that has something to do with Amadeus being shut down, because they said that, like, AI is basically playing God. If nothing else, I might need to learn the answers to those two questions. I thought for a while, then took out my phone and booted up the Rhine application. Kagari Shina felt happier and more fulfilled than the people around her thought she was. Her memories were missing. All she had now were memories of when she was young. She'd gone to the past when she was 10 and then gotten separated from Suzaha. Her memories afterward were a total blank, with the exception of the last few weeks. Her oldest memories after her childhood were of the ceiling she saw when she woke up. It was the ceiling of an old temple with stains here and there that looked like faces. She remembered being a little scared. Shortly after that, she was given to Yanabayashi Shrine.
かがりさん、お茶飲みますか？
あ、うん。ありがとう、ルカ君。
じゃあ、入れますね。
That was when she'd met Luka Urashibara. At the time, she hadn't realized that she already knew him. Luka Urashibara was a good friend of her adopted mother, Mayuri Shina. He'd played with her a lot when they were kids. When she was younger, she'd always thought he was a woman. To Kagari's young eyes, he'd been a strong, grown-up woman. At the time, she'd always wondered why Suzaha had called him Big Brother Luka.
はい、どうぞ。
ありがとう。
But the Luka in front of her now was far younger than the one she'd known. He looked like a very pretty girl, and not nearly as strong. Aw, I love the idea of Luka wanting to be strong, and then he did get strong in the future. So she'd only realized after that he was the Luka Urashibara she knew after meeting her mother.
ん？この紅茶、なんだか変わった味がする。
ローズマリーティー。集中力や記憶力が上がるって聞いて、フェイリスさんに分けてもらったんです。
Improving your memory and finding lost memory seemed like a totally different thing, totally different things to her, but she didn't say so. Just the thought made her very happy. Luka, Mama Mayuri, and the rest of Okabe's friends were all trying to help her get her memories back. It would probably make most people nervous not having their memories. It would be hard not knowing what you'd experienced. But to be honest, Kagari didn't think she needed to remember. Sometimes it seemed like a memory was about to come back. Each time her mind would roar with a sense of fear and anxiety.
もしかして、美味しくなかったですか？
Luka saw that she'd only taken a sip and stopped, and he seemed worried.
あ、ううん、そんなことない。美味しいよ。ただ、ちょっと考え事をしてただけ。
考え事？
そう、でも大したことないんだ。
She took a sip of the tea, hoping to change the subject.
それにしても、ルカ君って本当に男の子？
Everyone else said he was, but still it just didn't seem right to her.
そうですけど。
やっぱりどう見ても女の子にしか見えないよね。
I'm sure Luka is very tired of hearing that from people.
そんなこと言われても。
そうだ！ねえ、明日、一緒にお風呂入ってみる？
え？
そうすれば、ルカ君が本当に男の子なのかどうかわかるでしょ？
ダメですよ、そんなの。
どうして？
だってそんなの、だって女の人と一緒にお風呂なんて。
お姉さんとは一緒に入ってなかったの？
入ってましたけど、それは小さい頃の話で。かがりさん？
ごめん。冗談だよ、冗談。ルカ君が可愛いからついからかっちゃった。
そんな。
でもそういう反応を見せるってことはやっぱり男の子なんだね。
最初からそうだって言ってるじゃないですか。
Even when he was upset, he still looked like a girl, she thought.
ご覧のようにこちらのお店では数十種類にも及ぶ食べ物が全部食べ放題なんです。
The TV screen had been showing all kinds of delicious food.
すごいなあ。
The sight of it almost moved her to tears.
今の時代ってすごいよね。私の知ってる未来とは大違い。そうなんですか？未来の世界ってどんな感じなんです？知りたい？
Do you though? It's like, it's horrible. Many people died. We starved. Luca looked a little uncertain, and even though she'd asked, Kagari wasn't certain she should tell him. The future she knew was filled with despair. Everyone struggled desperately to stay alive, hoping tomorrow would somehow be better. They knew that there was no hope. How would they survive?
やっぱりやめておきます。
Kagari sighed in relief.
その方がいいよ。だって未来は変えられるものだから。
I don't know. What do you guys think? I definitely am of the mind I would not want to know what the future is like, preferably. Because it's like they said, it could affect your motivations. It could affect how you behave and what you do. If it's a really bad future, maybe you could change it in some way. But if it's something like a war or something that is just outside of your power, I feel like it would just make you just lose any motivation to want to do anything.
未来は変えられる？うん。ママがね、そう言ってた。きっと変えられる。変えてくれるって。変えてくれる。
That's what Mayuri had always told Kagari. That was her sorry guys. That was her tiny light of hope.
ね、なんだっけな。シュタインなんとかって。シュタインズゲートですか？そう、それは必ずあるってママは言ってた。って言いながら、それが何なのか私もよくわからないんだけど。
Steins Gate. To be honest, Kagari didn't know exactly what that meant, but each time Mayuri said it, Kagari had felt warmth in her heart. Someone would come to lead them to Steins Gate. When she thought about that, it gave her hope.
さて、それでは次の特集です。今、世界で記憶の再生技術に関する研究
Now
が
we're
進め
getting
られて
to
いる
memory
のはご存
restoration.
知でしょう
Of
か。
course.
今日はその最先端を走るあるアメ
And
リ
I
カの
wonder
大学の
which
特集です。
wonder which university this could possibly be. The news show had finished its food report and had already switched to another topic. Now it was showing a college campus covered in greenery. It was a wide open space that clearly wasn't Japanese. The second she saw it, she suddenly felt dizzy. Right? I was saying, I'm like, the reason that she had her memory wiped was probably something to do with, I'm thinking more along the lines of like Judy, because she worked in the like the brain science. I can't remember what her science was exactly, but like the fact that she just got dropped off somewhere and she has no memories, it's like they did that on purpose, and she's having memories. She was probably here getting her mind wiped.
こちらはビクトル・コンドリア大学。一見普通のキャンパスに見えるこの大学。しかし、この学内では今、ある大きなプロジェクトが進められています。
I wouldn't be surprised if like there's a secret Amadeus version of Kagari somewhere, and like somehow even Maho doesn't know about it. They like ripped her memories out of her. The discussion became more technical. It was far beyond what Kagari, who'd only had her memories as a child, could understand. But
チャンネル変えましょうか。あ、待って。
Kagari stopped him before he could get to the remote. You think that Luca would also be like, wait a minute, memory restoration? Maybe this could be something that could be useful for us.
かがりさん、わかるんですか？うん。脳の構造、記憶を捏造することはできるかっていう話。へえ、
すごいですね。僕には難しくて、何が何だか。
She suddenly found herself easily understanding what was being said. Why? How? How could she understand this?
そう？そんなに難しい話じゃないよ。記憶は脳の中の海馬っていうところが司ってるんだけど、その中に視上界って呼ばれるところがあるのね。
Right? Not difficult at all for, a layman person. Just to be able to have that, just on command, be able to say that. Okay, granule-shaped cells found near the hippocampal gyrus. Anatomy treats them as distinct from the hippocampus, but the field of neurology often uses the term hippocampus to refer to both of them. Recent research has revealed that neurogenesis occurring in the gyrus dentatus plays an important role in forgetting things. She was surprised at what she was saying, but the words kept coming anyway.
そこで行われる神経細胞の生産が既存の神経回路の再編を引き起こすの。それによって記憶の忘却が誘発されるんだ。で、この研究チームがマウス実験をしてみたら、記憶の捏造が見られたっていう話。あ、ほら、あの奥の部屋、あそこでマウス実験なんかをしてるの。
Everywhere, like places in the school she shouldn't know.
かがりさん、もしかしてこの大学知ってるんですか？
え？
She suddenly realized Luca was looking confused.
だってなんだか詳しそうな口ぶりでしたし。
Oh, and that is, that's Maho's office. Or her... Yeah. The TV was showing something that looked like a lab. The camera went toward the back of the room. A white door was opened that led to the next room.
この部屋で行われたマウスを使った実験。それによって研究チームは
And obviously it was a secret if Kagari was there because Maho didn't recognize her at all. Especially if she was in this specific room that Maho was in all the time.
知らない。
でも今。
Now again, it could be false memories, right? They just talked about false memories. That's right, she wasn't familiar with it. She didn't know anything about any place like this. But...
わからない。知らない。けど、なんでだろう。さっきは知ってるような気がしたの。
There was suddenly a piercing pain in the back of her head. It felt like the beginning of something terrifying. She suddenly felt very nervous.
いいが、おめえの頼みを聞いてやるわけじゃねえ。それだけは忘れるんじゃねえぞ。
感謝します。
This morning I'd gone to Tanuji and asked him to protect Kagari if something happened. That meant I had to talk to him about his role as a rounder again. And I had to tell him Kagari was caught up in something big too. But since this was the second time I'd had that conversation, I was able to make it go a little smoother. That was only relative to the first time, though. I never wanted to ask him for anything like this ever again.
おい、岡部。おめえら一体何に関わってやがる？
それは。
I stopped myself.
話せねえってか。頼み事するだけして、随分と虫のいい話だな。
すみません。
だがそれでいい。
え？
情報ってのは最後の切り札だ。そこでペラペラ喋っちまうようなら、俺は降りてたぜ。ま、せいぜい気をつけるんだな。
ありがとうございます。
わかったから。そうやってかしこまんな。どうにもやりにくくてしょうがね
え。I bowed to him once more anyway, and left the Brun workshop. I'd managed to get Tanuji's help, and this morning I'd gotten another person on my side as well. Mooka Kiryu. She was a lot easier than Tanuji. I checked with Daru last night and found that, just like in the old worldline, we'd hired her to find out more about Kagari. All I had to do was ask her to keep looking into what Kagari had been doing before she'd come to this town. Now I'd done everything I could in case something happened. All that was left was to pray that nothing did. I got back to the lab, where Lukiko was waiting. He had a very serious look on his face and said he needed to talk to me.
実はかがりさんの記憶のことで気になることがあって。
かがりの？
とは言っても、これが記憶を取り戻すことにつながるかどうかはわからないんですけど。
構わない。気になることがあるなら話してくれ。
はい。
Luca started to fidget and rub his knees together. Then he looked up at me and slowly opened his mouth.
ゆうべテレビで記憶の研究についての特集をやっていて、アメリカの大学で行われているものだったんですけど、それを見ていたかがりさんがまるでその学校を知っているような口ぶりだったんです。
アメリカの大学？どこの大学だ？
なんだか難しい名前の学校で、確かビクトル・コンドル？
ビクトル・コンドリア大学か？
You know he's got to talk to Maho about this. Like, Maho, do you know about this whole thing about memories and if Kagari was there? If there was any, any history of her being there?
そうです。その学校です。
I can never say it. Condria University. That was where Kurisu had studied. Kagari knew Victor Condria? If that was true, then how? The most obvious possibility was that she went there too. But how would a kid who went missing in Japan go to an American school? And one of the best at that. So I wonder if she got kidnapped or something, like someone recognized who she was. They kidnapped her and brought her back to America, if that's even possible. And like experimented on her. Like they knew about the fact that she time-leapt. Of course, it wasn't impossible, but...
どうでしょう。何か手がかりになりそうでしょうか。
さすがにそれだけじゃ何とも言えないが。
そうですか。
Lukiko's shoulders slumped in disappointment.
でも手がかりにならないというわけじゃない。
それじゃあ。
ああ、確かめてみる必要はあるな。
改まってお話って何かな？
The best way to find out was to talk to her directly. Kagari was just about to start work, and she seemed put off by the fact I'd suddenly asked to speak to her.
話はちょっと待ってくれるか？もう一人呼んであるんだ。
もう一人？
I didn't know a lot about Victor Condria myself. I could ask Kagari what she knew about the school, but I couldn't tell her if information was accurate or not. Okay, so it's Maho. Maho is going to be very curious about this too. There was a better person she could ask. Someone who should be here any minute.
お邪魔します。
The best way to find out about the school was to ask someone who actually went there. In fact, Maho was to this day a part of their brain science lab.
真帆さん、こんにちは。はい、元気？
Maho still didn't know Kagari was from the future. I'd have to keep her from finding out.
それにしても、本当にクリスに似てるわよね。
Maho stared at Kagari, then whispered so that only I could hear. It made sense. I'd been surprised myself. I started by explaining to Maho why I'd brought her here.
じゃあ何？つまり彼女がうちの学校にいたかもしれないっていうの？ちょっと待って、そんなこと言われても私
She also has trouble with
なん
that.
とかトルコドリア大学なんて
That's
知
what
ら
you
な
call
い
it.
よ。
I'm gonna call it Condra Whatsits.
ビクトル・コンドリア大学。
Condria.
ほらね、名前だってちゃんと覚えてないんだもん。
でも昨日は知っている様子だったんだろ、ルカ子。
はい。奥にある部屋で ネズミさんを使った実験を行っているって。そしたらその後本当にその部屋での実験の様子が映って。
かがりはそのことは？
覚えてない。
I couldn't imagine Lukako would lie or that there would be any point to him doing so. But the same was true for Kagari too.
漆原さん、その研究室どこだったかわかる？
と詳しくはわからないんですけど、脳とか記憶とかそんな研究をしているって言ってました。
ということは、もしかすると脳科学研究所かもしれないわね。
So I said it could be Judy, but very well, Brain Science Lab, and Maho herself talked about memories as well. So it could be them. Dr. Leskinen could have had a hand in it. The Brain Science Lab. That was where,
私が所属しているところよ。
and also where Kurisu worked too.
それじゃあ、もしかしたらかがりはヒアジョーさんやクリスと会っていたかもしれないということか。
Maho's probably like, I feel like I would know if I had met this girl who looks just like Kurisu.
あくまでも家庭の話よ。脳科学を研究しているところは一つじゃないし、私のいるところだって陰性だけじゃなく一般の研究者もたくさん出入りしてるもの。私だって研究所にいる人間全員と顔を合わせたわけじゃないわ。ただ同じ日本人となると見かければ記憶には残っているでしょうね。
Which meant she didn't remember it, which meant she probably had met her.
ルカ子、他にかがりのことで気になったことはないか？
かがりさん、時々びっくりするくらい難しいことを知っていたり。
私だって難しいことくらい知ってるもん。
Kagari pouted. That was one expression that was totally different from Kurisu's.
例えばえーっとえーっとバラとか憂鬱とか。
Those were just words that were complicated to write in Japanese.
昨日はテレビで記憶の捏造について放送していたんですけど、それもなんだか詳しそうでした。
記憶の捏造ね。確かにその研究をしているチームもいるわ。私たちも一度話を聞かせてもらいに行ったもの。
かがり、今その話はできるのか？
ねそれがよくわからないの。私本当にそんなことを話してた？
話してましたよ。
She put her hand between her eyebrows and thought. She really didn't remember, it seemed.
今までにこういうことはよくあったのか？
最近まではそれほど。この何日かで急に。
I didn't know how Kagari could possibly know things about Victorchondria, but it clearly had something to do with her missing memories. If I followed the trail a little longer, I might learn some clues. It was possible I might be able to bring back her memories. Suddenly, she started to moan in pain.
かがりさん、どうしたんですか？
ちょっと頭が。
痛いんですか？
Lukako was looking at her face, worried.
ちょっぴり。
少し横になるか？
大丈夫。
少し話をせかせすぎたかもしれないな。
そうね。負担が大きかったのかもしれないわね。
Maho was looking worried too.
本当に平気？大丈夫です。ありがとう、先輩。だったらいいのだけど。
The conversation was so natural that Maho and I almost missed it.
おい、
Wait,
今
senpai! That took me a moment too.
先輩って。
かがり、君今確かに 先輩って呼んだよ
So
な。
maybe she did
Hiyajo
go to
さんの
the
こと。
school, and not just as like an experiment.
嘘。私そんなこと。
いいえ、間違いなく言ったわ。漆原さん、あなたも聞いていたわよね。
I just figured she called her senpai because Maho is older than her, but I guess the thing is too, like, how would she know that Maho is older? And usually senpai is used as like a relationship more if you're... I don't know exactly. I thought like senpai could just be used for people who are older than you as like a thing of respect. But it's usually used between like classmates, like an upperclassman, you would refer to them as a senpai.
はい。
Senpai. Okay, there we go. The Japanese... I just had to wait a couple of seconds. The Japanese word used to address an older classmate or colleague. Okay, so senpai is used more for that. I wasn't sure senpai was more to use as like... It's like a thing of respect. I just assumed it was for someone who's older than you, but not by much. I just learned that Maho and Kagari hadn't met at Victor Condria. Did that mean it was just a mistake? The sound of footsteps coming up the stairs distracted me. They were so heavy, there was no need to wonder who it was.
おつー。
お邪魔してます。
おう、魔法タンも来てたん？
その呼び方はやめて。
足りるかな？ひふみ。
He ignored Maho's complaint and started to count the number of people in the room. There was some kind of paper bag in his hands.
よかった。大丈夫みたい。
何が大丈夫なんだ？
ほら、この前駅前にできたアトルあるでしょ？あそこに美味しそうなプリン売っててさ、たまにはと思って買ってきたんだけど、人数分あるかなって。
He put down the bag, opened the box, and started putting the pudding cups on the table.
ダル、後にしろ。
何みんな難しい顔して。僕がこんなん買ってくるの、そんな珍しい？まあ確かにその通りだけど、ちょうどバイトで結構な臨時収入が入ったんだよね。仕事ができる上に気配りと収入を持ち合わせている僕に惚れてもいいの。あれ？
He turned the bag over and started shaking it.
スプーンが一人分足りない。さては店員のお姉さん、入れ忘れたな。
使ってないスプーンなら確か流しのところに。あ、私マイスプーン持ってるから。
Wait, she just carries a spoon with her? Lukako stood up to get a spoon from the sink, then suddenly stopped. He looked at Kagari with a confused expression.
かがりさん、マイスプーンなんて持ってましたっけ？え？かがりさんが持ってたのって、ウーパのキーホルダーだけだったような。あれ？そうだよね。おかしいな。なんで私持ってるなんて。
Her own spoon? I'd heard someone say that before. Ugh. Am I supposed to know this? Not many people carried their own spoons around. It was common in Japan to carry around your own personal set of chopsticks lately, but not spoons. Susaha, maybe? But I knew. I had known someone who carried around her own spoon. It was... Oh! Kirisu Makise. I forgot about that. Just a moment ago, she'd called Maho senpai. Did Kagari know Kurisu after all?
なあ、ヒヤジョさん。向こうで君のことを先輩と呼ぶ人間は何人いた？
It's almost like they've implanted... Oh, is that it, maybe? Maybe they implanted memories of Kurisu since they've got Kurisu's memories for Amadeus. Maybe they implanted the memories of Kurisu into... Oh my gosh, now I'm going through the stuff, like the fact that she would know all that information about false memories, that she would know information about the brain science lab, that she would think that she'd carry a spoon like Kirisu. The fact she looks like Kirisu, that has nothing to do with it, but it's almost like, oh shit, is that what they were trying to do? It's like they were trying to make a new version of Kurisu that wasn't just Amadeus? Oh shit, maybe that's it. Maybe because Amadeus shut down. So instead of having the AI Kirisu, they're like, what we'll do is we'll take these memories and we'll plant them into this girl. And she'll basically be like a copy of Kurisu. Whoa, that's wild.
一人だけよ。先輩とか
Oh
後
my
輩と
gosh.
か、そういう呼び方とか関係は
Oh
日本
shit.
独特のものだから。
There was no need to even ask who it was.
私を先輩と呼んでたのはクリスだけ。
クリス。
Mind blown.
カガリー、君はマキセ・クリスのことを知ってるのか？
クリス。マキセ・クリス。
Did she know her? And was she imitating her? But why would she need to do that?
マキセ・クリス。
Kagari seemed to be desperately searching her memories, but it didn't seem to be working. There was sweat on her forehead. Her headache might still be bothering her.
無理はしなくていい。急いで思い出す必要は。
うん。このままにしとくのもなんだか気持ち悪い。
何か思い出せそうなんですか？
わかんない。わかんないから、オカリンさん、何か話して。
Something that Kirisu would know.
一体何が何なん？
The fact Kagari responded to this strongly to Kirisu's name meant there had to be some relationship. What could there possibly be? The question was this. What had Kagari been doing ever since she separated from Suzuha in 1998? She never met Maho. Did she ever meet Kirisu? Maybe she became friends with her and learned a lot about her. Then she'd gotten Kirisu's stories mixed up with her own memories? Or I remembered the machine Kirisu had developed in the Alpha worldline and came up with a certain hypothesis. I quickly told myself it was impossible. My eyes met Maho's. She nodded.
カガリー、じゃあいくつか質問させてくれ。
For now, I wanted to learn how much Kagari knew about Kurisu.
君の父親はどこにいる？
パパは死んじゃった。子供の頃に。
Her memories were mixed with Kurisu. She wouldn't say that. Those were Kagari's memories. She said she remembered everything from before she was 10 years old. She'd only lost her memories after she'd separated from Suzuha in 1998. I'd have to go a little deeper.
それじゃあ栗ご飯と言ったら何を思い浮かべる？
栗ご飯？何なの？
Be interesting if she started acting more like Kurisu.
答えてくれ、カガリ。
栗ご飯。カメハメハ。
Oh, everyone else seemed confused, but I felt as if my heart was about to stop. How could she know? Kuri Gohan and Kamehameha were Kurisu's @channel handle. Not only did she keep that a secret, she almost never let anyone know she posted on @channel. She never would have told anyone. How could Kagari know something only Kurisu should know? More sweat was pouring down her forehead. Luca offered her a handkerchief, worried. Kagari nodded and took it.
カガリー、タイムトラベルの主な理論がいくつあるか知っているか？
Maho looked like she wanted to say something, but I motioned for her to stay quiet.
11。
Kagari spoke clearly as if the answer was the most obvious thing in the world.
全部で11。あれ？違ったかな？
I hadn't expected much when I'd asked the question. I certainly hadn't expected that. The terrifying possibility I thought of earlier was becoming more and more real. It was impossible. It had to be. The more I tried to convince myself, the more my fears grew.
11の理論を具体的に説明できるか？
中性子星理論。それからブラックホール理論に高速理論。多気温理論、ワームホール理論、エキゾチック物質理論。
Kagari was counting with her fingers and speaking with very little
宇
hesitation.
宙紐理論、量子重力理論、セシウムレーザー光理論、素粒子リングレーザー理論、最後にディラック反粒子理論。全部合ってる。
Maho's voice was hoarse.
ねえ、岡部さん。私、どうしてそんなこと知ってるんだろう。
Kagari looked like she was about to cry a little.
もう一つ聞くが、それらの理論を用いてタイムマシンは作れると思うか？
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so my thing was thinking that like somehow she got the false memories, like maybe somebody did something to her in the school, but was it Kurisu herself? She somehow sent all this information because she sent the message to get Okabe back in the timeline, but by changing the timeline, by her doing that, she changed the timeline, right? And now Kagari has all of these memories or all of these like things that Kirisu knows. Did Kirisu somehow intentionally do that, or was that like a... Because in the other world line where we met Kagari, she didn't know all this stuff, or at least we didn't learn that. But then again, we also didn't see Kagari for most of the last route. I'm so confused right now.
できないと思う。
ほう。
あ、でもこの11の理論では作れないけど、今後の科学の発展次第ではできなくもない。
It's almost like Kurisu sent
じゃないか
back
な。
all this information to put in Kagari so that somehow Kagari would be able... I don't think that's it. I was like, did she send this information so that they could build a time machine to reach Steins Gate? But no, Kirisu didn't want Okabe to remember her and she wanted to be forgotten about. I'm so confused.
どうしてそう思う？
どうして？それはどうしてだろう。
じゃあ質問を変えよう。その考え方に行き着いたのはなぜだ？
わかんないけど、ただなんとなく知ってたような。
She knew, huh? That meant the knowledge existed inside of her. But why did she have that knowledge? Had she been to Victor Condria at some point in the past and met Kirisu there? Maybe they were close friends? So close that Kirisu would share her at-channel nickname, which she never told anyone? And then perhaps she mistook what she'd heard from Kirisu for her own memories? That was the most obvious possibility. But that would go against what Kirisu had said. Kirisu said she didn't really have any close friends in America. She seemed to have developed a solid relationship with Maho at work, but the dark fear in my mind kept growing.
なあ、ヒアジョーさん。アマデウスは凍結されたと言ってい
Okay,
た
so
が、
so it seems like my first thing was true about like they took Kirisu's memories and they stuck them in her instead.
アップロードされていたクリスの記憶データってまだ存在するのか？
ええ、多分破棄はされていないはずだけど。
それってどれだけの人間がアクセスできたんだ？
ごく限られた人間だけよ。どこにも公表はしていなかったから。私やレスキネン教授、他に助手が何人か、そしてクリス。
ちなみにその記憶データを人間の脳に移植することって可能だったりするよな。
は？
In the other world line, Maho herself, or Dr. Leskinen to be precise, had said something about that at the ATF seminar, and I had experienced it myself. Through a machine that digitized human memories, sent them through time and then back to the same person's brain. It didn't exist in this world line, but had once lived in a world line where it was developed in this very room. I'd used it far more times than I ever wanted to, and because of that experience I came up with an idea. A terrifying idea. Another way to explain what was happening to Kagari now.
一体何を。
マイスプーンを持ち歩いていたのはクリスなんだ。大学でヒアジョーさんのことを先輩って呼んでいたのもクリスだけだ。栗ご飯とカメハメハはクリスがアットチャンネルで使っていたコテハンだ。知っているのは本人以外だと。俺くらいクリスならビクトル・コンドリア大学の研究室のことも知ってる。マウス実験のことも知ってる。11のタイムマシン理論についても知ってる。
オカリンさん、どういうこと？何が言いたいの？
俺の思いついた仮説だ。
I looked around the room at everyone, and then back at Kagari.
かがり、もしかしたら君の頭の中にはマキセ・クリスの記憶が移植されているかもしれない。
Special shoutouts to my top tier patrons: Emily Hornsby, Salieri, Zorn Ether, Amdere, Revealing Storm, Icognito, Asborn Kennedy, Harry Gazif, Jared Fan, and Saturn Sins.